The reason I remember this tournament in Cuernavaca was because I had a bet with someone, which was that if I won this tournament in Cuernavaca, this girl would have to go out on a date with me. And so I was really into this tournament, and I won this game. Things were going well. And I think it was like the second to last round. It was like third to last round or second to last round. And unfortunately, I think it was a game against Lenny Dominguez that I lost. That cost me this chance to take someone out on a date. Yes, you guys, a real girl. Very funny, very funny. That's why I remembered. Yes, that's exactly why. That's why I remembered. Became a pro at chess for a girl. Confirmed. So, all right, you guys, you want to know my routine? My routine is in the morning. I wake up at about 5 a.m. I have 2 of these bars. I think you can see it. These Nutri-Greens. I got 2 of them. I have 2 bars. I have some coffee, and I have this Bumblebee, whatever you call it. And that's basically all that I eat. So that's what I eat for my my breakfast before the match, and then that's all that I live off of, along with some coffee until the end of the match. So that's what I do before the match. And then after the match, like today, I went out to Trader Joe's, got some food. 5 a.m. Yeah, you guys, the matches start at 7 a.m. local time, so I'm not lucky enough to sleep in. So that's what I do, and then like I have some pasta usually and some salad. That's normally what I do. Using the bathroom during the match, well, yeah, you know, sometimes you just gotta go. And the other thing I would say is also when you drink coffee, usually when I drink coffee, it means that I end up having to go more times than I would like to. So that's just life. But anyway, that's my routine. So I do that. Then I usually have like a salad for lunch and some pasta for dinner, basically. And then I go to bed and I wake up and do it all again the next day. So that's pretty much the routine. So, okay, so knight takes e4 is what Magnus plays. I go rook e1, knight d6, knight takes e5. Trader Joe's more like rich vegans. I got some salami at Trader Joe's earlier this afternoon when I went out. So, yeah, so I don't know about that. Anyway, knight e5, bishop e7. I played bishop to f1. Magnus plays knight f5. Slight surprise. Normally in the past, he's castled the king. Here he decides to play knight f5. So now I go knight f3. Magnus Carlsen, I play d4, d5. It's worth noting this is very similar to the game that we played earlier in the event. Very specifically in the second game of the third match, I believe that what happened was Magnus played pawn to c3, knight takes knight, rook takes knight, pawn here, rook e1, d5, d4, castles, bishop f4, bishop d6, queen f3, knight h4, queen g3, knight f5, queen f3, knight h4, and we drew this game in the third match, second game. So this time around, Magnus was white that game, by the way. I was black. So here colors were flipped, and we decided to play a little bit differently. So I go knight f3, keeping knights on the board. Magnus castles. Play d4, d5, knight to c3. Do I smoke? I do not smoke, you guys. That's very bad for your lungs. That's like trying to kill yourself. No can do. So I play knight c3 here. Kind of a slightly different approach. Normally white plays like c3 or bishop d3. I decided to play knight c3. This is a line that Fabiano has played before. So I try to follow Fabiano. Bishop b4. Played a3. Slightly dubious move. I think generally speaking, bishop g5 is supposed to be the correct line, which I did play in a later game. So here I played a3. Bishop c3. B takes c3. Knight d6. Now you reach a position that objectively I think white should be slightly better, but it's very hard to play due to the fact that you have these double pawns on c2 and c3, and black can bring the knight out very quickly. So here I played h3, which I think in retrospect was a mistake. Probably what I should have played was bishop to d3. But again, I was a little bit concerned that after bishop g4... oh, why is the depth so messed up? No wonder it's giving this so much better. Okay. After bishop g4, maybe I can play h3, but after bishop h5, black should be doing completely fine here. So, as you see from the evaluation, it's saying it's better for white, but depth is 15. That's going to come down as it gets deeper. How many coffees did I drink during this match? Just 2. I had 1 cup of coffee before the match, and I had 1, I believe, in between the second and third game. So, Johnny Lopez, thank you for the comment. The match is not over. Long way to go. Thinking that it's over, thinking that I've won, that's a loser's attitude to have. I'm only focused on tomorrow. There's none of this nonsense about thinking about, you know, after you win, all this nonsense. You never think like that. The way that you approach the things is you focus on just the next game. There's only the next game. You know, this notion of winning, like, I'm not even thinking about winning. I'm thinking about showing up tomorrow and playing good shots. That's all I'm thinking about. There is no Greek gift here, because after bishop takes h7, king h7. If I play knight g5 check, hitting the king and attacking the bishop, black can go queen takes a knight. And if I take the queen, black takes, and when I take, you'll see he has 2 knights for 1 bishop. Black is up a piece here. So so here I play h3, bishop f5. I go bishop f4. Again, trying to take advantage of the knight being on d6. But now Magnus goes rook e8, and the problem here mainly for white is that at this point it's white is maybe doing fine, but you kind of really need to bail out here and take. And one of the problems that I had, I would say in this game is I didn't really feel that danger coming, so I kept wanting to keep the game going on. Instead of just flattening it and realizing there was danger with knight a5 and knight c4 coming. You guys, there will be a 24-hour stream, but that will probably be after PogChamps, because again, I'm playing tomorrow, maybe playing the day after. PogChamps starts on Friday, so I'm just super busy. A lot of stuff going on everywhere right now, and that's that. So here I played knight h4, big mistake. Why is the stream limited to 720p? Well, you guys, I have a slight problem with my computer right now. I'm not actually 100% sure whether it's like there's an issue with the fan or there's a problem with the pump in the tower itself. But basically, my computer is running. It's not running at full power because the computer's too hot. So I'm not sure if it's like the pump internally or if it's the fan or what's wrong. But there are some issues. So until I resolve that, it's what it is. So apologies in advance for that. Okay, so bishop e4. Yeah, it's water cooled. Yeah, it's water cooled, but there's something wrong. I don't think that's an issue with the sound though. The sound is probably just because I have fans on me. So I played f3 here, bishop g6. I take, Magnus takes. Now here what we have, the CPU temperature is like it's too hot. It's like 200. It's 205 degrees Fahrenheit, 98 Celsius. At least when I checked in core temp earlier. So yeah, there is a slight issue with overheating, but it's not related to chess. I think it's just related to something with the fan or something's not working. So yeah. So I play bishop d3 here. Knight a5 is played. I take on d6. Magnus takes, and now I go queen d2. And the idea here is to play rook to e1 and play in the center of the board. Knight c4 here, and now I trade. At this point, the position should be a draw. Position should be a draw here because basically what's going on is that the pawns are even and there's a closed c file here, but something's probably loose from transport. Yeah, I realize that. I have someone who's coming out to take a look at it, so I'll get it fixed. Don't worry about that. So here I play rook e1. Now what I probably should have played here is the position is very balanced. It's about even. I think rook e1 was fine, but after queen a4, what I should have played here I think was not queen c1. I should have been active and played rook to e7. I don't really know why I didn't do this move. I think the main reason is because I thought that after queen a3, rook b7, maybe not rook c7 of course, after rook b7, that after a5, maybe it's a little bit dangerous. This a pawn is running down the board, but the funny thing is, at this point, I can just play queen e3, and you'll see that I can keep this queen in a nice little box here. So even though he can push the pawn, he has no route back. So I think black is better, but I should have gone active, because in the game what happens is the position probably remains okay after queen c1, but after rook e8 trade and king f2, queen a4, black is slightly better due to the bad pawn structure and the long-term ideas of running the king over to the queen side. And now here I make a big mistake. I played queen b2, and what I should have done here is I should have said enough is enough, play queen g5, queen c2, king g3, and the game would have ended in a draw here, because basically black can take this pawn. He's up 2 pawns, but then I go check, check, and I just keep making this classic right triangle, and the game ends in a draw. And if black doesn't take the pawn, the only way to avoid this check is to go here, but then I go queen d5 check, and I collect the pawn on c4, and it's a very easy and very routine draw. So playing queen b2 here is an extremely poor move by me. Magnus plays b6 to guard the pawn, of course, supports it with the pawn a7. I go h4. He goes king f8. I go queen b4, which I was very proud of at the time, because I realized that, again, if black takes on c2, it's the same kind of process. King g3, and now I'm going to win one of these pawns, and it will be an easy draw. So he goes queen c6. I play pawn to g4. He goes king e7. I go king g3, which is, again, a mistake here, not understanding the danger. Anybody getting choppy FPS? I don't think so. I'm not dropping frames. No, no, okay. No, okay. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Nope, nope, nope. We all good. We all good, you guys. So here I go king g3, which is a mistake. What I'm dropping bars. Yeah, the bar is not going my way. So I go king g3. He goes queen d5. I go queen b1 here. Magnus plays queen to e6. I played queen c1. And now Magnus goes king d7. And now they're big problems because basically my king is on the wrong side of the board. It's very safe, but black has a straight path with the king to a4. And long term, all these endgames with kings and queens are going to be winning for black. So here I go king f2, king c6, and I play queen g5. Again, the problem here is I can't trade the queens. So if I go queen e3, I think he can take. Maybe here, no, maybe here he doesn't take. He just goes king b5 and king a4, and he aims right away to try and promote this a pawn as fast as possible. And it's very, very dangerous for white. This is game one of the fifth match today. So I play queen g5 again, logical move, try to infiltrate, try to cut the king, no squares to go to. So Magnus goes king to b7, logical move, bring the king to the very edge where it can never really be touched by my queen. So I go queen d8, he goes f5, I go queen f8, Magnus trades, and he plays king a6. Of course not queen g4, because then I have queen f7. Again, more classic right triangles. King gets stuck no matter where he goes, and it would be a draw again. So he goes king a6. And now I play king f3, which I think is a big mistake. I suspect there's a way to draw this endgame. Let's see what the engine says. 1 second. Okay, so the computer says I can take and go queen g8. Again, very, very hard move to play. The idea being that white can run the king over this one. I guess the black king is too open. Again, very, very hard for a human to play. Not very logical. It's 1800 here in Brazil, and in LA it's just 1400. Yes, you guys, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in Los Angeles. But it is also burning hot here. It is like way too hot. I think it's like 100 or a little over that. Maybe it's cooled off, but it's been pretty unbearable the last couple of days here in LA. So here I go king f3, pawn to d5, and now I blunder. I play king f4, which is a horrible move. And I had a feeling at this point that it was really, really bad for me. Like, I had a feeling king f4 was not the best move, but apparently the computer says it is, so I did it. Now Magnus found the excellent move, pawn to g5. Fahrenheit, not Celsius, you guys, not Celsius. Very funny. And the problem with this pawn push is I can't take with the king, because then he goes queen h6 check, king f5, and now he pushes the pawn to check my king, but he also hits my queen. So when I move my king, he just takes my queen on f8, and it's completely winning. So the problem is also after g5 takes, this is very thematic, because here, when we look at this, I have 2 pawns to try and create a passed pawn. Whereas after I take, now I have double stacked pawns, and I'm going to have trouble getting a queen here at the end of the board. So queen here, king g3, he plays queen e1, queen f2, he takes, which I think is a mistake maybe. I think somewhere around here should be winning. Let's see. Okay, I go queen f2. Let's see. Let's do this. Let it think for 1 second. Oh, queen c2 instead of queen e1. Aha. Aha. So he was supposed to take this juicer, because after queen b4, how does he win? How does black win? Oh. Oh, and I lose all the endgames, because if I move my king, he trades, and if I take, he goes this way, he's got a straight path for a queen, and if I take this way, he's got a straight path for this pawn. Because my pawns are stacked, I can't make a queen. Oh, that's a problem. Oh, so it's very easily winning then. Okay, so Magnus played queen e1, and now after queen f2 takes king f4, black is still better. But the thing is, white's king is running in as well, and if I can take this one, I actually can create a pass pawn going up this d file, rather than, why not king h4? Well, king h4 looks really cute, like I'm trying to stalemate myself, but I think after g6 I just lose, because like I can't stalemate myself with the pawns. I don't know. I think it's bad. I think it's losing here, because even if I go a4 king a5, I can't make the stalemate here. I can't make a stalemate pattern, so I think it's just losing. So that's why I want king f4. He takes, I go king e5. In the end game, the king can be a very active piece, and you might as well use it. Terrible. Yes, I know. If you look at these games with the computers, Magnus seems like a total putz, and so do I, frankly. But the great thing about chess, I will say, is, again, even with computers being so much better than humans, we can still learn from them, and we try to implement it in our human matches. Queen e7, king d5, king b5, and now I play queen to f5 here. The idea is basically my king is stuck in the center, but black is going to have issues because wherever he moves the queen, I move the king to check the king, and then this d pawn again is running all the way up the board. So Magnus plays a5. Human match is pathetic. Yes, totally. So I go c3 here, support the pawn, and now I also create this check as well. So Magnus goes a4, I check king a5, and now I go king c6. Very important move, because if I go king takes c4, I actually lose here. And I lose because black can go queen e6 check. If I go king d3, he has this very dirty move, queen g6, skewering the king and the queen, and when I move my king, I just lose the queen on b1. And if I push the pawn, he just takes the pawn. Same problem, I have to come back, and then he goes here. Same skewer, and I lose my queen. So that's why after king a5, I go king c6 instead. Idea being, use the king. The king is an active piece. Try to make a checkmate. Also try to push this d pawn up the board, ram it to d8, and make another queen. So Magnus checks. I go here, and here we basically agree to a draw. Now, one thing I was going to say is I thought maybe Magnus could try queen b5, but after queen b5, I can actually play queen e4 here, and it gets very dicey because this d pawn is, again, really fast, straight path. I also have a check on a8, and the game probably... Oh, no, wait, this is actually winning for white. Wow. Oh, this isn't even a draw. It's just winning for white. That's crazy. Because if he goes a3, I check, and I go queen f8. Oh, my gosh. And I create a checkmate idea with the queen. And if he checks, I come up, and he still has no checks because everything's covered. And now I go queen b4, queen a4, and black's king gets checkmated. So Magnus actually made the right decision in repeating and making the draw here, because otherwise he would have lost. And the reason is because the king. My king is so active. And in endgames, the king, you need to use your king. It's no longer the only piece that can attack the king is this queen, and with only one piece to attack the king, you can use it as an aggressive piece to try and attack as well. So first game ended in a draw. Sort of a very much a moment of relief for me, because I did feel like I was under a lot of pressure in this game, and surviving this game and making the draw certainly gave me a big boost going into the second game, even though I had the black pieces. So let's move on to the second game. Okay, Magnus goes e4, e5, knight 3, knight 6, bishop c4, bishop c5. I won't go over the moves really in depth because this is all a repetition of what we did yesterday. I played pawn to a5, knight f1, knight bishop e6, bishop e5, knight e7, takes, d5, knight e4, bishop d3, takes, and this is where I improved. Whoa, thank you to DHB88 for the 9,000 biddies. Thank you so much to DHB88. Thank you so much. This was in rapid, yeah. And what I would say here is that yesterday I played a4, which was not the best move. Here I decided to play bishop g4. And this is what makes chess so hard, is like this idea that Magnus used that won him the match yesterday, won the third game, was fine for that game, but I had studied, I had improved upon it, and I actually played bishop g4, and I got a very good position in this game. Magnus went bishop c2. I played c5, bishop e3, I played pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn, and now I played rook to c8 here. And the idea is that basically I want to prevent white from being able to attack me with like queen d3 and queen h7. At the same time, I also want to sort of exchange some of the juicers off the board as well, so the position begins to stabilize. So here Magnus plays rook c1. I go rook c4, trying to force him to make the exchange of the bishops, or else I'm going to have a really nice bishop on b6. So we trade. He goes b3. I go rook to c7. The idea to double stack the rooks on c7 and c8. How many more days? At most, there will be 2 more days. If I win tomorrow, it's all over. If I lose tomorrow, there will be a seventh and final match. Thank you to Harsam for the host. Thank you so much. Thank you to Harsam for the host with 798 viewers. Thank you so much to everybody who's coming from Harsam's channel. Make sure to check out Harsam. He is a StarCraft 2 streamer. Also plays quite a bit of chess as well. Those of you who are just tuning in, I'm going over analysis from a tournament that I'm competing in right now. I'm playing in this Magnus Carlsen Invitational Tour. We're in the final match between myself and Magnus Carlsen. I won the match today, so I'm currently leading 3-2. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, or okay, let's back up so that this video can get edited for later. All right, so you guys, I'm playing in this final of the Magnus Carlsen Invitational Tour. Currently the match is 2-2. And I'm going over the games from the 5th match today that I played against Magnus Carlsen. We're currently looking at the a second game of the match. It's a best of 4. You play 4 games. If it's tied, there are 2 Blitz games. Past the 2 Blitz games, there is also an Armageddon game as well. All right. So Bishop B1 is what Magnus plays here. I go Rook F8 again, trying to take advantage of this open line and use my rooks. Magnus trades the rooks. I take with the queen. He goes Queen D4. White is maybe slightly better here. He's got a nice pawn in the center. Nice pawn. He's also got a nice diagonal for his light square bishop. It's pronounced Armageddon, please. Armageddon, yeah. So I played bishop E6. Magnus goes Queen D3. I go bishop F5, offering exchange of the bishops here. He goes back. Now I play Queen 3. Again, main point in this endgame is that the material is even. You see the same number of pawns, same number of pieces. What I want to do is I want to make some exchanges, because the more pieces that come off, the harder it is for white to take advantage of this isolated pawn here on this d5 square. So here Magnus goes Queen F4, and now I trade. I go Knight G6, double attack on the pawn and the queen. So he goes Queen F5, I go Queen C2, basically forcing white to trade. You cannot move the queen because then you'll lose your rook in the corner. So Magnus plays Knight D4, attacking my queen, but also supporting his queen. We trade the queens. I played King F8 here. Of course not Knight takes pawn, so I go Knight takes pawn. White has the very nasty move, Knight to E7, double attack. White forks the king and the rook at the same time and wins the rook on C8. So here I go King F8. Idea to still take the pawn, but now there are no ideas with any of these horse jumps, winning my rook on the C8 square. Magnus plays F4. I go Knight E7, offering a trade of knights. He goes Knight D6. I go Rook C2. If white takes the pawn, I can take that pawn on A2, and my rook will guard the pawn on A5. So Magnus plays A4. And now one thing that I would also say about endgames to think about is that you want to be aware of what are weaknesses and strengths. So right now you'd think this is a weak pawn, but I can also use this pawn as a strength and turn it into a pass pawn and try to make a queen at the other end of the board. So I played D4. Rook D1, I played Knight to C6. He plays Knight B5, trying to capture this pawn. Again, he can maybe take this pawn, but if he does this, I go here and I hit both of these pawns at the same time, and I have D3, D2 coming as well. So that's why he plays Knight B5, attacks pawn on D4. I play Rook B2. He goes Rook D3. I go King E7, King H2, King E6, and now Magnus has to trade. Because if he doesn't take the pawn on d4, my king now, as in the first game, you guys, in endgames, the king is in an active piece. You want to use it to attack. So like if white just plays g4, now my king starts to run in, and again, an active king coming up the board with a passed pawn here, and white has a lot of problems to deal with. So that's why he decides to take. We trade. I take. He checks. I go here. Rook D5, B6, Rook D6, and now I think I offered draw, and Magnus took the draw. I could have played F6 here to simplify, and the game would have gone Rook C6. We trade, Rook B4, and I mean, white just kind of can wait anything. I don't know, Rook G6, King F7, Rook C6, and the game is a draw here. So basically, this game ended in a draw, and I felt very pleased at this point, because again, after the first game where I was under pressure, when you have the black pieces and you get a relatively smooth game where you draw, it really builds your confidence, especially against somebody like Magnus, who is so strong. He tends to put a lot of pressure on his opponent, so when you get a relatively smooth game with the black pieces, especially after the first game, which was very wild, you know you're doing well. All right, so let's move on to the third game. So as you see, first 2 games were drawn. So now as we move on to the third game, he plays I play E4. Sorry, let me rotate the board. E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop B5, Knight F6 castles, Knight E4, Rook E1. Same Berlin defense, same opening. I'm completely fine, you guys. Just some coffee went down the wrong tube. Bishop E7, I go Bishop F1, Knight F5, play Knight F3. Magnus castles. I play pawn to D4, D5, and here I play Knight C3, Bishop B4. And unlike the first game of this 5th match, I play Bishop to G5 here. The idea behind bishop g5 is that you want to force your opponent to play this pawn push, because now there's one thing, and I'll keep going in the game. So one thing you'll see in this position is that here what black would really like to do is stop me from playing c4. So you ideally would like to go bishop e6 to cover the square 1, 2, 3 times. But he can't do that because here I take the bishop. So the idea behind playing this bishop g5 move is that if black is that as in the game after knight e7 a3, first of all, black does not go bishop b6, so I go knight b5 and take the bishop. So he takes, and now there's no bishop e6. So I in a way I wasted a tempo with this bishop move, but I made him push a pawn. And in the game of chess, always remember, when you push pawns forward, pawns never go backwards. You can never undo the pawn move. So Magnus really would like the pawn to be back one square, but he pushed the pawn to f6, and there's no way of taking that pawn move back. The move is permanent, and you have no chance. So plays bishop f5, I go c4, and this is the big difference as well between this game and the first one. Is here I get rid of my double pawns potentially, and then I'm just gonna have the two bishops, the bishop pair, to try and attack long term towards his king and towards his queen side. So Magnus plays c6. I play pawn to a4, which apparently is a bad move at this point in the game. I think, well, maybe not. Let's see what it says when the depth picks up a little bit more. Let's see what it says. Survey says, let's see. Oh, a4 is the best move? Okay, I thought c5 was also a move that made sense, but I played a4, goes rook e8, I play pawn to c5, knight f7, and now I go knight to b3 here. I don't know if this was the right move. In retrospect, I have a feeling that I should have played a c4, maybe a5 and c4, but some combination, using the second pawn on c2 and pushing c4 felt like I should have done it. I don't know what the right move is here. I think a5 would have made more sense to go rook b1. Again, very hard. Very, very hard to figure out. So I play knight b3. Magnus plays queen d7. I go bishop f4 again, trying to use the bishop on this diagonal. Now, right now it's an open diagonal, but long term, I'm thinking that maybe I'll play like knight a5 and rook b1, put pressure here, and he'll never be able to defend this pawn with the rook b8 if the bishop is just covering all the squares on this line. So he goes knight g6. I trade the rooks. I go bishop g3 again, keeping an eye open on this diagonal. So Magnus plays h5. I play pawn h4. Of course, I do not play queen takes pawn. So I play queen takes pawn. Black can just go bishop takes c2, and white is probably not even better. I mean, maybe knight a5, and you can claim some kind of small edge, but a little bit skeptical about this. So I played h4 to stop black from pushing the pawn forward one square. He goes bishop g4. I play f3. Goes bishop f5. I play pawn to a5. Now Magnus plays pawn to a6 here. I didn't really want to play this pawn push. Again, I really wanted rook b1, knight a5, but after rook b1, b6, I wasn't really sure how to press the advantage here. But apparently I'm just stupid and bad at chess, because b6 is looking like a very bad move. Oh, wow. b6 is a terrible move, apparently. Okay, I'm just bad at chess. Fair enough. Well, that is very disappointing. Yeah, so I should have gone rook b1 with the idea of knight a5, but for some reason I just thought b6 was fine, but the computer seems to think it's not fine. That's very disappointing. Okay, so b6, and I guess queen d2 and white's better. So I really misevaluated this position, it seems like, because after a5, a6, I played queen d2. Apparently, I was told knight d2 here, knight h6, c4 is supposed to be really, really good for white as well. I don't know why, but it's supposed to be good for white. Or not. I don't know. Anyway, confusing. Very, very confusing kind of position here. So I'm not really sure what I did right or wrong. I played queen d2, knight h6, and now I just played rook e1. Trade the rooks, bishop e6, and now we make this repetition, mainly because the problem is with these pawns fixed like this, I can't really get to the base here to win all these pawns. My knight can't go here, and I have to be careful there isn't some knight f5 to put pressure on the pawn here on h4 as well. So for that reason, at this point in the game, I thought, you know what, it's better to be safe than sorry. Just, you know, make the draw, move along to game 4. So we drew this third game, so 3 draws. So now we will move on to the 4th game of the match, in which I had the black pieces. So Magnus goes d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, bishop f4, playing the London system again. I play c5, e3, queen b6, following the one and only, the legendary Ding Liren, who I think has played this against Magnus many times in the last couple of Chess 24 tournaments. So, you know, when in doubt, always try to play like Ding. That's my motto. So here Magnus plays c4, and now I play pawn takes pawn. And I will add, one thing that is worth noting is that we can actually see our opponent's webcams. And when I played pawn takes pawn, Magnus was visibly upset. I could tell on his face, he's like, why did he just play this move right away? Because this move pawn to c4 is actually a novelty here. It's not a move that's ever been played before, but prior to this match, I had done some preparation. I did look at this, and so I think Magnus thought he was coming with a new idea that was fresh when he played c4, and the moment I just took right away, I saw a visible unhappy look. Magnus looked very unhappy, looked mad. The moment that I took on d4, like, he literally looked pissed off. He was like, what? He basically, it's the what, he looked at this line kind of look. I could totally tell. So yeah, that's what I noticed, is the moment that I took on d4, Magnus immediately, his demeanor, he looked unhappy. He looked very unhappy the moment that I took on d4, because it was very clear that I had prepared this and I had looked at this line before. Now, a lot of what goes into rapid chess and blitz chess is preparation, and you're trying to surprise your opponent, get them somewhere where they're uncomfortable, so they have to use a lot of time in the opening phase of the game. And so the moment I took, Magnus just looked very unhappy. So he played queen takes pawn, played knight bd7. Magnus goes knight c3. I trade queens. He takes with the pawn. If white takes with the knight, I can actually just push the pawn here and fork the knight and the bishop. And after knight b5, ef4, knight c7, king d8, knight a8, I play pawn takes pawn. And white's knight is eventually going to get trapped in the corner. Some b6, bishop b7 to gobble the knight on a8. And black is very close to winning. So therefore, in this position, Magnus took with the pawn. I took on c4. He takes. I go knight b6 here, attacking the bishop on c4. So he goes bishop b3, e6, king e2, bishop b4. Again, all stuff that I looked at. This is all preparation ahead of this game, or ahead of this match, I would say. So now Magnus goes rook c1, castles, knight e5, and this was sort of after rook d8, rook d1, the first new point in the game, where I was on my own, because up to this point I had actually prepared the whole line. So now I played bishop to d7. Now the reason that it made sense for Magnus to bring the king to e2 is because we are in an endgame with only rooks on the board, so having your king in the center of the board makes a lot of sense. Good prep, but where's the win? Yes, you guys, you can't just win with black, period. That's just not how it works. So here Magnus takes, I take back. So white has the bishop pair, the 2 bishops, but he has an isolated pawn on d4 that is closely guarded, closely being watched by the rook on d7. I watched its critical d5 score with so many pieces as well that that this pawn is a touch weak. So here Magnus plays a3. So I go bishop e7. Bishop to e5 is played. I go knight to g4, bishop g3, and here I got very careless, you guys, and I played knight to f6 without paying attention. At this point, it's probably completely fine. A move like bishop f6, I think, would have been a pretty smooth draw, but I played knight f6, and I blundered that Magnus has this very annoying knight a4 move. Now the difference here is that if I take the knight and go rook d8, white can go rook c7, attacking the bishop and attacking the pawn. So if we go back to this position right here, if white goes knight a4 and we trade and I go rook d8, rook c7, I can go knight d5 here, forking his rook and his bishop and winning some material. Whereas in the game, because I threw in this extra tempo and he gets the bishop to g3, it doesn't work out like that. Because now, as you see, when I go rook d8, rook c7, there's no bishop on f4, it's on g3, so this is an empty move, and now he just eats the pawn on b7, and white's much better. So that's why here I go b5. Magnus takes, I go rook to b7, and I attack the bishop, but if the bishop moves, I will take the pawn on b2. So he plays a4, so I go a6 here, bishop c6, I take the pawn, rook d2, we trade, I go rook d8, which I think is a mistake, by the way. I suspect rook c8 was correct here. Oh, it's not. So I went rook d8 here, and Magnus now blunders. He goes king d3. I mean, b5 was the only move that I had there. If I don't go b5, I just lose. So it wasn't a hard move to find. So apparently here after rook c4, white would have been better. It's a tough move to play. Magnus went king d3, and now after rook c8, the game is 100% going to be a draw because there's this pin on the rook and the bishop. White can't avoid either an opposite color bishop or a bishop's ending. So Magnus played rook c4, and the point is that after knight h5, white can no longer keep this bishop on the board. And once I exchange a knight for the bishop, we end up in opposite color bishop endgames, which are almost always going to be a draw. And if white tries to go bishop f4, so he can remove the bishop next move because he guards the rook, I have the in-between move knight to d5 here. And if white takes, I trade the rooks. I go pawn takes bishop, and you'll see here it's same color bishops, but it's just a dead draw because of where the pawns are. Yeah, Magnus was very annoyed because I think he thought he was just better, and as soon as I played rook c8, it's like, uh-oh, the whole advantage is gone. So Magnus played rook c4, and now after knight h5, like I said, white can't keep the bishop for the knight, which means we're going to end up with opposite colored bishops, which is almost always going to end in a draw. So he goes bishop e5, I go f6, he goes back, now I eat the bishop, and I just play a5 here. Not the only move to play, but the only way white could win here is a5, bishop b7, and win this a6 pawn. So I just go a5. I don't care about the fact that white can just win an extra pawn, because as I said before, once we get this opposite colored bishop's endgame, my bishop supports the pawn, and I put everything on dark squares, and the bishop can't touch any of my pieces at all. So he goes g4, bishop g8, and now, as you'll see, the reason this is a draw, white is up one pawn, but everything that I have is on a dark square, and his bishop can't attack anything here. And conversely, all his pieces are on light squares, so my bishop can't attack anything either. So when you get opposite color bishops, it's I missed rook b1. Oh, after rook d8, rook b1. Wow, that would have been pretty solid. So yeah. Anyway, the king e4 is played, and now I just keep my eye on this pawn until he pushes it. And the moment he pushes, I bring the bishop here, he goes here, and I just keep waiting forever. I don't go king f8 because then white would go king e6, and this probably still is a draw, but the pawn gains space. So I keep the king here. I oppose the king, so no entry. And when he goes this way, then I retreat. If he goes back, I go back. I just keep the king opposite his king, and the game ends in a draw. So he plays f4, g5. We trade, and I just go back, and game ends in a draw again. When white goes here to come up, I bring the king here. When white brings the king here, I come back. So white can never make any progress. And if he pushes the pawn, again, I just wait forever with my bishop, and it's opposite colored bishops, always leading to a draw. So I ended up drawing this fourth game, which meant that the match was tied 2-2, and we go into the blitz games. Before we go into the blitz games, though, I am going to get a little bit of water and use the restroom very quickly, you guys. So just bear with me and give me a second, and I'll be right back. Right, you guys, we're back, and since I did win today, I'm gonna have my guilty pleasure. So time to have some hair. What's wrong with my hair? Nothing's wrong. I'm just gonna have my sugar. Sugar is always good to have, you guys. So all right. Someone says, of course Magnus is tired. He just moved cross-country driving over 3,000 miles and streams 6 hours a day. Oh, wait. Good one, you guys. Good one. Anyway, yeah, this is my guilty pleasure. When I feel like being bad and just having empty calories, I just have this. Yeah, well, what can I say? You know, I don't even know if it's the energy. But I think you guys, in many ways, you are giving me a lot of the inspiration. Like at some point, like that starts, like it really does start to help. Like it's like that, having that wind at your back, kind of, when all is said and done. So thank you again to everybody. I do appreciate it. All right. So yeah. So fourth game ends in a draw. So one thing I'm going to say, you guys, and I mean, I'm going to be very honest. Just like brutally honest, because we're nearing the end of this match. It's not over yet. But what I would say is going in is that you know, I was hoping I'd win like 1 or 2 of the matches, but with every passing day, as I get good positions and I play good chess, it sort of builds the confidence. So I'm feeling very, very confident just in general. And what I would say as well is that Magnus made a comment, I think it was yesterday, and he essentially said that I'm the greatest defender in the world, is what he said. I think he said that on Chess 24 yesterday. He said something along those lines, and And what I would say in regards to that is I've had a lot of experience, because honestly I've gotten many bad positions against Magnus. I've gotten a lot of really gross and ugly positions, and I've lost a good chunk of them. But what I would say is, because I've had so much experience of getting really garbage positions, I mean, not just against Magnus, but mainly against him, it certainly has helped a lot for defending. So anyway, all right, you guys. Of course, I could say the same thing about Magnus. He obviously is a great defender. The difference is that for Magnus, he just doesn't get bad positions. So, like, when you don't get bad positions, it's easier to play chess. I mean, obviously, it's much easier to play chess when you get good positions, the vast majority of the time. So, and the other thing that I would say as well, the other thing that I would say as well in regards to that is, again, you guys, like, trying to create this drama, like we hate each other, all this other stuff, like, it's not true. Like, at the end of the day, you might not like someone, but we all have a lot of respect for each other's chess. All right, so let's move on. So first 4 games were drawn. Let's move on to the Blitz games now. So I played e4, and here Magnus played knight f6, and this is the big question mark that I'm sure Magnus will answer this. Do I sound weird? I should sound good, don't I? I should sound good. I think I sound good. Maybe I'm wrong. But I sound fine. Okay, yeah, I sound good. Okay, yeah, you guys are trolling me as usual. It's all good. Well, no, I didn't say I don't like him. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Magnus, of course. He's done a lot for the game of chess. So no, that's definitely not the case. Anyway, e4, knight f6. What I wasn't clear on is whether Magnus intended to play this or not, because when I played e4 and Magnus played knight f6, he had this weird look on his face, and it wasn't this like regular look. He had this weird look, like it wasn't clear if he intended to or if he thought it was a different board or what was going on. So anyway, knight f6, I play e5, knight d5, d4, d6, c4, knight b6, played f4 here, takes, knight c6, and now I played knight to c, or not knight c, sorry, it goes bishop f5, knight c3, e6. I played this quite a few times as black as well. The idea is that you try to defend, you try to bring your knight out, bring your bishops out very quickly. I sound weird, high pitched. Let me make sure. Let's see, 1 second. Let me see. No, I sound good. Okay. So you guys are just trolling me as always. Man, it happens. Okay, so knight c3, e6, knight f3. This is called the 4 pawns variation. White goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a very aggressive setup against the Aliekin's defense. So here Magnus plays bishop b4. Very dodgy move, not a good move objectively, but in a blitz game, you're trying to just play slightly differently and imbalance things. So here I played bishop e2. I think both queen b3 and bishop d3 are extremely strong here. Someone just says Sessa says it's plus 1.6. We can hear the fan. I thought there was a noise. I think there's a compression, so you should not be hearing any white noise. So after bishop d3, white is doing really well. So I played bishop e2, which was not a good move, because after c5, black has to chip away at the white center, and it's not really clear how white plays it. So I play a3, trying to play some quick moves, knight c6 castles, just get quick development, try to attack on the king side, like bishop g5, knight h4, maybe d5 or d takes c5. Chat, stop trolling me, seriously. Next person to write something silly is going to get banned. So please, take a deep breath and relax. So castle, I go bishop e3, trying to guard the center of the board here. Knight a5 is played. I play knight d2, of course. Remove the knight, guard the pawn, also put pressure on the bishop. Maybe play d5. So if he takes, he loses the bishop, and also the c5 is loose as well. So he goes bishop g6. And now here I play queen e1, which is a big mistake. And one thing I will say about Magnus in these blitz games, he really sort of he saw the good moves immediately. Like I should have gone rook c1 or I should have gone rook f4 and h4. I actually really like rook f4 here with the idea of playing h4 h5 to attack the bishop. Go rook g4. And I think I should have done this. I should have played this right away. Instead, I played queen e1 right away, which is a big mistake because now there's this very pesky move, knight to a4, hitting the pawn on c3, and I can't defend with the rook. So I go rook c1. Now he takes, I take, and then he goes pawn takes pawn, and I just lose the game on the spot, unfortunately, because now I'm going to lose material, and it's just bad news bear every which way. So here I decide to play knight f3, and I decide, you know what, enough is enough. I'm going all in. I don't care about my queen side. My hopes and futures, everything depends on the king side. So here he goes knight b2. What's the plan for tomorrow without saying too much? The plan for tomorrow is to play good chess. That's the plan for tomorrow, you guys. So I go bishop g5. Magnus plays queen d7. I go queen h4. Very strange move. Not a good move, I don't think. Maybe I should have taken. Yeah, I don't really know what the best move is. I go queen h4. He trades. He takes. And so now here black is up one pawn, and this is where I basically throw all caution to the wind. I play queen g4 and decide, you know what? I'm down a pawn on the queen side, but I have two bishops. The knights are a little bit airy here. They're kind of stuck, and I'm just going to go attack. So he plays queen d5. I play rook ae1. Again, all caution to the wind. Nobody cares about the queen side or any of these stinking pawns. You just go attack, attack, attack. So he plays rook c8. I go h4. Plays h5. I play queen g3. Again, slight weakness here, but it's not easy. Knight a3. Now I played bishop f6, just saying, you know what, again, throw all caution to the wind. Just attack, 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 attack. And this is actually very reminiscent of how, like, Daniel Naroditsky likes to play against. So he plays sort of attacking ideas and just hope that it works. And kind of, I was hoping this works. And objectively, it does not work. So apparently, you can take and go rook c3, because if I go queen f4, there's queen e4, and if I try to lobster pincer, there's a in-between check, trading the queens. Again, seeing rook c3 is very, very hard, not easy, and in a blitz game, it's quite difficult. So he goes knight c2. I play bishop d3. He takes. I take back. Of course, black cannot take this bishop, because then he gets checkmated by the queen. He can't take this bishop, because then I take this one, like takes, and after, I guess, black takes, it's just check here, check, and it's a draw. Although maybe this is winning some. Oh, this might be winning somehow. Maybe it's even winning, because I can go takes, and I can go rook e5 and attack. Wow. So apparently this is winning, but not easy at any rate. So here Magnus plays queen d7. We're both getting a little bit low on time. I think we're down to like an hour, maybe around that time point. Play d5 again. All aboard the choo-choo train. No country for no country for slow chess. So I play d5, just attack. I'm down a rook for a knight at this point, or for a bishop, I should say. So it's very, very tricky, and I need to go all in here and attack. So he plays rook c3, which is apparently a big mistake. I guess he's supposed to play what, rook c4 or something insane? Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to go rook c4, rook g4. I mean, I'm sorry, for a human with 30 seconds on the clock, that is way too dank. That's insane. That's insane. I wasn't trolling about the fan. I can tell it's rotating side to side too. Yes, you guys, except the fan is not rotating side to side, but thank you. So he plays rook c3. I'm so tempted to ban you, man. So tempted for that. I know that's a troll, but I'm so tempted. I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide. So Magnus plays rook c3, and I played rook e3, which is actually a mistake. Rook c3 is a blunder here, because apparently here I can take, pawn takes, queen takes, and the idea is I want to go knight g5 and queen h7 with the checkmate towards the king, and after queen f7 I apparently can go queen g5, and I know the computer here is not going to find it, but this is apparently a drawn position here, because after black takes on d5 I have this amazing move knight to d4, and I go knight f5 or knight e6, and there are all kinds of big threats around the black king here. And after king h7, knight e6, apparently the position ends in a draw. You can't take this one because I take that one. Take this one, I take that one, then I take this one, and I go like here and here. And the position ends in a draw here, basically, because after rook c8, I check, goes here, I go here, and now there's a very computer-esque knight f7. Because if he takes with the queen, I go bishop g5, which is just checkmate. And after king h7, I go back. And this is a draw that's completely insane. I would not expect anybody in their right mind to find this. So it's really nuts. Really nuts. So, all right. So I missed this draw with bishop g6. I played rook e3. And now here Magnus plays... Magnus goes rook takes bishop, rook takes rook, and pawn takes pawn. And as soon as he gets this clarification, the position is lost because I run out of ammunition. I have nothing more to attack with. So I play e6, takes bishop d4, trying again, get the bishop to attack, but after knight c6, rook d2, queen g4, the game is over because here black is just up 4 juicers, and he's going to put the bishop on e4 and liquidate, simplify the position into something that that is going to lead to a draw. So okay, so here queen g4, I go queen f2, fawn on bandwiners, yeah. Knight e5, I take rook c8. And again, I try to keep the game alive, but there just isn't much to be done. And Magnus finds rook c2, which is a very nice way of liquidating. After takes, if I take the bishop, he can just take my bishop. So I tried to take here, but after take, he just checks. And now he goes king g7. And the problem is, even though it's a queen ending, black has way too many juicers. He's up 4 pawns, and his king is going to be very safe. He can just run it all over the board. So I go queen c6, d4. I take one of them, but again, it doesn't matter that I get one of them because this one is just coming down the board in a flurry. So I go queen d7, he checks, he goes d2, I go queen d8, queen h4, queen f4, and now here, it's just lost. I check, he comes here, and now nothing I can do. I play queen d5, and after check, here he checks, trying to exchange the queens. So I push the pawn, but after queen g3, king h1, check, king g2. There's just queen e2 here with the check, and when I come back, he can just make another queen, and after takes, king h2, just queen e2, king g1, king g3, king h1, and queen g2 would be checkmate. So I lost this first blitz game, very difficult game, very messy. Honestly, after the game, I was just kind of stunned to find out that this whole idea with queen g5 and knight d4 is okay, but you know, I thought it was quite interesting that it didn't work. So let's move on to the psychology. So let's go to the second game of Blitz, which I played against Magnus. Now, one thing that I think I've done a very good job in general is just sort of keeping an even keel, sort of staying very, very calm throughout. Which is that when I say staying calm, what I mean is just like not worrying about the situation. Like, okay, I lost the first game with black. It's not like that, oh no, I lost with black, it's over, like the world's ending, like I have no chance. Whereas I wanted this game sort of just like, you know what, big deal, I lost. Okay, I just focus and I just try to play a good game of chess. So after d4, I play knight f6. Whoops, sorry, I go knight f6. Magnus plays c4, or knight f3. I go g6 here. And Magnus played c4 here. I was kind of surprised. I thought he would actually play the London with bishop f4, but he goes c4, bishop g7, knight c3, castles, e4, d6. So I play the King's Indian defense, you guys. Obviously one of my favorite openings. I've had so many legendary games in the King's Indian over the years. It's definitely something that has been great to me, so I thought I would play it. The only problem is after bishop e2, I had to stop for a few seconds and think of the right move, because if I had played e5 here, Magnus could have just traded pawns and traded queens, and after something like knight d5, which I myself have played many times with the white pieces, you're not going to be able to win the game. So I had to stop and try to figure out what to do. So I play knight d7 first, castles, and now I play pawn to e5, because if white takes, I just take back, and queens are still on the board here. So here he goes bishop e3, I play knight g4, bishop g5, f6, bishop h4, and I just say, you know what, it's must-win time, might as well fling the pawns on the king side, try to take advantage of this bishop on h4, which is a little bit loose. So here Magnus plays pawn to h3, I go knight to... Oh, come on. I hit the next button. I didn't hit the down button. I hit the arrow over, not the arrow down. So he plays h3. So I go knight to h6 here. And again, the idea here is that mainly I have to bring the knight back. He creates space for the bishop, but at some point I'm still going to be able to fling the pawns, the g and the f pawn, up the board. So Magnus goes bishop g3. Not a move that I liked, by the way. I thought he could have left the bishop on h4 potentially. Apparently c5 is just winning. That's not shocking. I had a feeling some c5 type move, ripping open the structure, was probably very, very good for white. But Magnus plays bishop g3. I go king h7. Kind of a sketchy move, just a move to play. He goes queen c2. I play pawn to c6. Idea is to take squares in the center so I can bring my queen out. Magnus plays rook d1, queen e7. So now we've reached sort of the optimal setup for white and black. And this is where I think Magnus made a very big mistake. In that he tried to force matters with c5 here. This felt like a very forcing way, trying to force things open. And while I think white is still probably better here, it was completely unnecessary. I thought white could have played like a3 and b4, or even just b4 first, with the idea of c5, preparing it so that he has two support points for the pawn on c5. But instead he plays c5, and now after takes d5, knight b6, like, I started to get very optimistic here, because even though I think white is better here, it gets very, very dicey, because even though white is better, white's down a pawn, and now these pawns on c6 and c5 are very, very solid. So Magnus goes knight a4, which I think is a bad move. So after I trade and go rook b8, now all bets are off, because b2 is under attack. I have rook b4, and when I got rook b8, and I had a feeling that, not that I was going to win the game necessarily, but that I was going to get some chances to create a messy position. So he plays b3, I go rook b4, double attack the queen and the pawn. Magnus takes, I go bishop b7, and now when the queen moves, it's, you know, it's your good old classic right triangle here, with the rook and the bishop guarding each other. And Magnus played queen d7, big mistake, by the way. I thought he should have gone rook d7, and after rook d7, I think if it takes rook e7, I was gonna go rook f7. Is this actually good? Is it good? Let's see. How good is this for black? It is good. It's quite good. Okay, so this actually was good. This actually was quite good. Okay. So this is what I was going to do. Magnus played queen d7, which allows rook f7. And the moment I played rook f7, again, I saw a visible change on his face. Like he didn't like get, it wasn't the angry look, but it was like, man, he found rook f7. And after rook f7 again, white is probably still only slightly worse, but the problem is you're losing a pawn, so you're going to be down a pawn here because you can't guard this twice, and it becomes very, very dangerous. So he goes knight d2, I take, he takes, goes bishop c4, and here I played a move that I was very mad at myself for playing. I played rook d4, and as soon as I played rook d4, I'm like, you can go f3. And so when I played rook d4, I don't think you saw it on my face, but it's like, I was like, please don't play f3. And the moment he started thinking for more than 5 seconds, it's like, he's going to play f3, and of course, sure enough, he played f3. And the reason that this was so stupid is because here I can play, I think I would have gone knight f5, but even h4 here, forcing bishop h2, and then rook d4 is so much better, because you'll see the bishop can't get on this line. He's gonna have to go here, 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 and it's gonna take 3 moves to get it. Whereas yes, we do see each other on cam, you guys. So here I played rook d4, and now after f3, you see the bishop actually gets in very quickly, and it's a whole new ball game altogether. Mind you, it's probably still close to winning for black, but the whole task becomes very, very tricky. So I go rook d7, he goes rook a1, knight f5, bishop f2, and now I'm just like, you know what, I don't care, it's a must-win game, might as well play bishop h6, and if he takes, I'll take with the pawn, try to go knight e3, f5, e4, try to run something down the center part of the board, and I've got a grip on all the dark squares, so I should get something. And as you guys see, with more depth, it's actually giving black a big advantage here. So yeah, so I'm like, okay, you know what, who cares? So he goes rook e1. I mean, I had to play bishop h6 because I can't move the rook. If I move the rook, he just takes the pawn. So I mean, it's just like, I better sack it, because what else can I do? So he plays rook e1, and now I go bishop d2. He takes. Again, still can't move the rook. How do I progress? Idea was to go here, here, and like if white plays rook here, I can hit the rook, and when he moves, then I check. And after takes king h2, now you'll see my bishop has done like a weird maneuver, uno, dos, tres, and it actually is great because it counteracts his bishop, but it also guards all my pawns. So it's like a perfect kind of like, it's like the semi-wooden shield kind of in a way, if I can get the bishop to d4. So so here he takes, and now I take. He goes rook d1, I check. Here I play h4 again. Important move here, because I clamp down on the dark squares. White can never remove the knight now, and I can always move the bishop, move the knight, and I think it's very, very bad for white here. Practically speaking, I think it's close to loss, just because of how hard it is to play it. So Magnus plays b4, I check. I play knight e3, hitting the rook and the bishop. He goes, I hit the side arrow again. I hit the side arrow again, sorry. Okay, so I go knight e3 to hit, to hit the rook and hit the bishop. He goes rook c1. I go d3. Goes bishop b5, and here I blunder. I think in this position, if I had played, yeah, if I wait, now why is rook d8 winning? Oh no, I didn't blunder. I thought I was supposed to go rook d5 here to remove the bishop and push the pawn. And this is still good because I was very mad during the game. So after rook d4, he checks and he has rook d7. But apparently I'm an idiot and this is just winning by force if I trade. Let's see. Is this winning? This is just winning. F5, and I'm probably going to create passed pawns. Okay. So anyway, I wasn't sure. I still have like 3 minutes on the clock, but I didn't want to burn my time trying to calculate these endgames, and so I thought, you know what? This is much more practical. Keep rooks on the board, put pressure on his king side, and after bishop f1, knight f5, I'm going to get the bishop here where it can guard the pawn, and again, with the clamp on the light on the dark squares here, with my knight hopping every which way, surely I get to keep the game going. That doesn't mean I'm going to win here, but the game keeps going. So Magnus plays a4, I check, I go bishop d4, again, logical move, try to create like a wooden shield, as always. So he goes rook c1, I go knight e3, again, logical move, the bishop now supports everything, and now my knight keeps an eye on the bishop and the pawn. I can also go rook f2 and put pressure as well. So he goes a5, I play rook f2, king g1, only move, I go rook a2, of course, goes a6, and this is where I think I made a mistake. Maybe not. I guess this is correct. Let's see. I check, I take, and now he goes f4, and let's see. And now bishop e3 is apparently winning here. Why did I not play bishop e3? Why is this winning? Oh, this is winning because after rook c6, I take, and I can go here with an in-between to hit the pawn. And if white comes up, I take, and if white tries like double, I have this stupid move. Oh. So bad at chess. Wow, okay, that is unfortunate. So I played rook g1, and I tried to play this other endgame, which I thought was winning quite routinely, but in fact is not trivial to win here. So I go here, he goes here, play check, I check, he goes back. And now here, I played king g5, a7, and I was sure this is winning somehow, but I wasn't 100% sure how to do it. So apparently the way to win is to play f5, king e3, and rook a5, because now if he goes back, I can go king f4 and I win the game. Oh yeah, I'm so bad at chess. I really am. I'm terrible. Because after rook a1, I waste a couple of moves, and then now he goes king d5, and now the game is a draw. Yeah, because now the game is probably a draw because white can run the king here to b7. I had a feeling that I had really flubbed it somehow as well. But let's keep going. Is this actually winning or not? Let's see. Is this winning? No, it's not winning. It's a draw. Yeah. So basically the way to win this game, and I will definitely be looking at this later, is to go... the way to win is to go f5 here, king e3, and I just check. And after king d4, king f4, and this is just winning, I think. Or is this? No, it's not. Wait, so let's see. Let's go back here. So why is this winning by force? I'm trying to understand this. So if I go rook a5, king e4, f5, and he goes king e3, why is this winning by force? Oh, because I can then cut him this way, and then I cut him this way. Okay, so again, very tough. This is way too dank, obviously, so I'm not going to get super deep into all of this. But the way that you win this is you have to cut the king on the right rank, basically, and it's still not easy to win. But at any rate, this would have been this would have been the right way to play. Because in the game, I had a feeling somewhere around here, that this probably was a draw already. Because after here, king d5, I played king f4. Now I was shocked when Magnus played rook h8. I was sure that he would go king c6, king b7. When he played rook h8, I was like, whew, all the danger is past, because at this point I knew that I had to be winning here. Like, there's just no way that I can't be winning with the white king completely offside. And after king f5, the game is over, because white can't bring the king back, because then I check him and I win the rook. And so the king is also going to get cut this way vertically. So it's either getting cut vertically or horizontally, and this is just a technical win. So rook h8, I check him, so again vertical, so I cut him off, so the king is stuck. There's like this invisible wall here that the king can never cross and come back into the country from. So I go g5, plays rook h6, king e5, again logical move, try to push the pawn. Magnus plays h4, I trade, and now I can cut the king again, no access points. Gets to go here, and now again he's cut by another file, so the king's even one file further, and now it's just a routine win. So he goes rook h1, I go f5, he checks, I go here, he checks, I go here, he checks, I go here, he checks, I block of course, and now I push the pawn, bring the king and push the pawn. And this also is another thing I would say as well, is at the end of this game, this is winning because even if white goes king e3, I can go over, and now I'm not cutting him vertically, but I cut him laterally. If the king gets cut by a rank here, you see how I'm pushing. If the king's not on his back ring and is cut laterally, this is also winning by force as well. So there are two ways. You can cut the king laterally as you're going up, or you can cut the king vertically. One way or the other, they both win. So so anyway, I won this game. Magnus resigned, I think, after f3 here. So this is a must-win game with the black piece. I won this game. Yeah, so like for example, king e3, rook e2, king d3, I can cut it this way, and this is winning, for example, where I cut it vertically. I can also go here, and now he's cut laterally, so the king can never cross laterally backwards either. So both ways, laterally and horizontally, work. Or sorry, vertically and horizontally, sorry. So both move. Knight d5 worked after rook d7. I saw knight d5 during the game, but I wasn't sure if it was winning. I didn't want to take the risk. So both ways of cutting the king with the rook are winning in the rook and pawn. I won't get into the intricacies, but it's just worth noting. This is winning. So like for example, let me make some moves here. Let's go back here. I'll give you guys an example. So let's go here, back here. If I can cut the king like this way where it's too far, it's winning. But also, for example, if we get to this position, let's get here and I play rook a3, this is also winning because the king can't cross, so it's cut laterally, and this is a forced win as well. So there are two ways. You can cut it up and down or side to side, and both ways are winning with the rook and pawn versus rook. The lateral one is much more elegant, and it's not the one that most people learn. They learn the classic the up and down, up and down one, as opposed to the lateral one. But the lateral one is also you do need to know this as well. So both of these ways of cutting the king win. And so I won the second game. So let's go to the third and final, or not third and final, but the seventh and final game of the day, the Armageddon game. So in this game I had the black pieces. Magnus, darn it, yeah, I hit the wrong button again. I meant to hit the back button. So in the seventh and final game, Magnus had the choice. He was the higher rated seed. He chose to play with the white pieces. I wasn't really sure what he would pick, because it's very hard when you lose a game. If it's a game where you only need a draw and you lose, it's very hard in the next game what to do in Armageddon, especially with the choice. Because for example, he was very slow with the white pieces. I was up 2 to 3 minutes the whole game, and so it's very hard to know what the right choice is. So I liked his decision to pick the white pieces because he was slow, and you figure you just want to play fast, and hey, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you get to go fast, you got the extra time. So if you're slow, you still have a chance to make it work. Magnus would get to pick every match. Yes, that's the why, being the higher seed. There's got to be some payoff to being the higher seed. So he plays e4, d4. I go knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop e4, a3. I take, I go c5, e3, knight 6. And one thing that I would say as well is I was very happy to see this, because this is an opening that I have a lot of familiarity with. I played it many times over the years. Not over the years, but I played it with the white pieces over the years. And I've always thought this is completely fine for black. You know what you're doing. And luckily I was familiar with this. I played knight e8, castles, bishop a6, f4, f5. Magnus trades, we trade, and here he played bishop e3, d6, knight g3, g6, and here he played rook e1. Now I'm also going to give you guys a fun little story. So let me see if I can pull it up in another monitor, just so I get the year right. So I have actually had this position with the white pieces. I had this in a game. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up. I had this with the white pieces against Andre Volokitin in 2006 in Mexico. And so I remember this game very well, because in the game with the white pieces, I played bishop takes pawn, pawn takes queen d5, and I thought, okay, double attack on the king and knight. He blocks, and I just take the knight. And so I had this against Andre Volokitin, and it was in 2006. It was in Mexico. I do believe that I won that game. Let me see if it's gonna ever load. 1 second. Come on, can we load, please? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Well, let's put this up here. Here we go. Okay, you guys. So this was 2006. Cuernavaca Young Masters. This was a game that I won. So let's keep going. Like, does this look familiar, you guys? Does this look familiar? Does it? Does it look familiar? Well, it does, because this is what I had. Anyway, so I had this game in 2006 against Andre Volokitin, which I won with the white pieces. Many years later, it's been proven that this line is not great for black, but I thought I would mention it anyway. And so I remember this very well, because I'll give you guys a little story. I remember because I played this tournament in 2006, and the reason I remember this tournament in Cuernavaca was because I had a bet with someone, which was that if I won this tournament in Cuernavaca, this girl would have to go out on a date with me. And so I was really into this tournament, and I won this game. Things were going well. I think it was like the second to last round. It was like third to last round or second to last round. And unfortunately, I think it was a game against Lenny Dominguez that I lost. That cost me this chance to take someone out on a date. Yes, you guys, a real girl. Very funny, very funny. That's why I remembered. Yes, that's exactly why that's why I remembered. Became a pro at chess for a girl, confirmed. So yes, yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, you guys are gonna go nuts because of this. But I remember that because I had this kind of bet, and unfortunately it didn't work out because I lost I think in the second to last round against Dominguez, I believe it was. So anyway, that's what happens. But that's also a large part of why I remember this tournament. Not the only reason, but why I remember it. Did I ever take her out on a date? No, I did not. Anyway, all right. So back to the game. I was very familiar with this, and of course I remember that game. So Magnus did not. Magnus played rook e1 here, so I played knight to f6. Logical move. Bring the knight back to the center of the board. And now Magnus played bishop f2. I played queen d7. No, you guys, it was not a girl who played chess. It was someone who didn't play chess. I played knight a5 here, doubling the attack on this weak pawn. So white has the bishop pair, but because these double pawns, white can't really put the bishop on the diagonal that he wants to put the bishop on. So he went bishop h4. I played rook a to e8 here. Idea just trade down some pieces, because long term, the more pieces that come off the board, I've got very solid pawn structure here. He's got a weak pawn, and white can't really infiltrate here because this bishop really belongs on this diagonal, but he can't get it. Sorry, I can't draw arrows. Bishop really belongs on this diagonal, but white can't get the bishop there. So Magnus trades. Time was almost even. Yeah, like I said, I was familiar with this line. I remembered it. I was able to recall it. And that's why I remember. So he goes queen f3. I play rook e6, rook b1, and at this point, I knew that I was much better. So we traded. He played a4. Now here, right at the moment when I had the feeling that things were over and I was going to win the game, I blunder. I play king g7, which is a huge mistake. I guess it's not losing because I saw the tactic, but the problem is after I play king g7, Magnus checked right away, is that he could have played rook b7, rook e7, and now there's a really nasty tactic, queen to e2, pinning, like there's a double pin here, so I can't take the rooks, I lose my queen. I can't take the queen because that puts my king in check, and he's also attacking the rook and the knight at the same time, and this is just winning for white, because if I try to defend with king here, he trades the rooks, and he takes the knight on c4, and I lose a piece. And right when I played this, I saw it in that half second when I played king g7, right before Magnus played queen b7, I saw it. So if he had played rook b7, I would have gone king f6 probably. And the game goes on, and black's still fine, but it's very iffy even. Maybe it's not that iffy, because I can still play rook e1. But it would not have been trivial. I still would have had to have seen it. Luckily, I saw the move, so it wasn't a problem. But Magnus, fortunately, just played queen b7 instantly. And now after queen f7, queen a6, I go rook e7. I protect the knight. I stop rook b7. And at this point, the game is more or less over. So he plays rook b8. I go king h6. Maybe not the best move, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let white get a queen c8, queen h8, or any tricks on the back rank. So I might as well just bring the king up. He goes h3. I play queen e6. Magnus plays rook a8, and now I went knight d2. Again, a very nice move. Just one thing that's important is when you're way ahead, like in a game where you don't need to win, kill the game. Make sure you do whatever you can to get pieces off the board in the most clean, most efficient manner, rather than trying to win the game. Because here black is winning. If I'm trying to play for the win, I probably can find a win here. But I don't need the win. I just need the draw. So the thing is, just get the pieces off the board. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter if you're winning and you know and you need to try to win. Lose the ego, kill the game, make the draw. End of story. Get out of dodge. So that's why I played knight d2 here. Again, I know that if the knights and the rooks and the queens all come off the board, I'm not going to lose. But if this was a slow game, my attitude would be different. It'd be like, okay, well, let's go like queen e4 or queen e1. Let's show some awesome technique and get a win. But in a game where you don't need to win, it's more important to be pragmatic and practical. Make the draw, get pieces off the board, make the draw. You don't need the win. You don't need to show how brilliant you are, how, you know, this great technique you have, because there's a chance you could blunder. So you want to you just want to play the odds and just make sure that you kill the whole thing. So I play knight d2 here. Magnus plays rook d8. I take the knight. Queen f1. By the way, white cannot take the knight here because then I have the very nice move queen to e3 check, hitting the king and the knight. And after king h1, I just go queen takes. I'm threatening rook e1, queen f4. White's king is very open, and his rook and queen are not even remotely close to attacking my king, which is way over here on another planet on h6. So Magnus goes rook d8. I just trade. I go queen e3, king h2, and I play rook e4. Last little bit. Again, probably this is winning, but you know what? You don't need to win. You just need to get the pieces off the board. So he plays rook d6. I trade the queens, and now at this point I can never lose. But the most important thing here was that I was already ahead on the clock. So I was up like maybe a minute or minute 5, minute 10 to like 40-45 seconds. So the goal was just avoid any kind of real sloppy time scramble at the end of the game. So I played rook c4, rook a6. I take, he takes, rook a3, king g1. Of course, white can play a6 here. And after c4, rook c7, rook a6, rook c4, this would be a draw. But again, must-win game. Nobody cares. You have to try to do whatever you can to confuse matters. So Magnus goes king g1. I push. And here I really got sloppy. What I should have done was just played c3, king e3, c2, king d2, rook a2. And the game would have been a very clean draw because white can't win this pawn. I always keep an eye on this pawn. So this would have been a little bit cleaner than what I did in the game. But it didn't matter anyway because I check, king e3. I take the pawn, king d4. I play rook to h2. He plays a6. I take, he takes. I go rook h1. And now, at the very least, I know that I can always sack my rook for the pawn. I'll be able to make a queen or get him to sack his rook for a pawn, and there's no way to lose. So he goes rook d7, rook a1, king b5, and now I go king g5. Don't even care about this pawn. Goal is just to get this baby rolling up the board here. So he plays rook d4. I go f4, and now it doesn't work. The one last trick, rook a4, to try and make a queen. Unfortunately, this pawn at f4 is too far advanced, so I can swap. I go f3, a7, f2, a8, f1, and now the game is just winning. He checks, I block, he checks, I block, and not only do I offer the queen trade, but I also put the king in check, so he would have to trade, and then I can take, and I'm going to make a queen and win the game. So Magnus resigned here, and with this resignation, I take the lead in the overall match 3-2. It is a best of 7. So we still have many more games to go, but we're up 3-2. All is good, and tomorrow I'll try to close it out. It's the first, I guess, elimination series for anybody since no one's gotten to 3 wins. So right now, one second, you guys. So right now, wait. Oh, do I not have my alerts? I don't have my alerts. One second, you guys. Sorry, I need to add my alerts to this scene. One second. Sorry, one second. Apologies, you guys. Okay, there we go. Okay, you guys. So with this win, I'm up 3-2. Tomorrow we go for glory. But we're guaranteed to have at least 2 more, maximum 2 matches. Hopefully, I can bring it home tomorrow. Because it would be really nice to at least get a break before Pog Champs begins.
Just gifted 5 subs.
Thank you to Old Jar for the 5 gifted. Thank you so much. So yeah, I really like your mental strength. You have been seeing any professionals to overcome your fear of Magnus? No, actually, you know who's given me a lot of inspiration, even though I haven't spoken to him, is Mr. Gary. So if I had to say something, what I would say is that Gary specifically, he said, like, he was saying that, you know, people are like mentally weak and they're not trying. He said that he said something like people are weak or something. So so I don't know exactly what he said specifically. No, I mean Mr. Gary is and Gary Kimovich Kasparov. 1 second, you guys. Sorry. I just need to add this as well. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, sorry. Whoa, thank you to Super Robot Axe for 10 gifted. Thank you so much. So yeah, so Gary was saying something like he felt that the players he played against in his day were like a lot stronger, something relatively speaking, and I think he was talking psychology as well. So if anything, what I was gonna say is that I feel like Gary, if anyone has given me this inspiration, we're talking about Gary Kasparov. Also, you guys, we do have some updated stuff. We have some merch. Let me click this so we can get this to load as well. Whoa, thank you, Padfoot, for the 5 gifted. Thank you so much. So
gifted 5 subs.
So we also have some new merch, you guys, if you're interested. So I thought I would show this a little bit for you guys as well. So we're putting out some new merch. So yeah. Anyway, up 3-2. We go again. Yeah. we go again tomorrow. In the 6th match. If it doesn't go my way, we'll have a 7th match. Was that sarcastic about Gary? No, I'm not being sarcastic at all. I'm being completely honest. Whoa, thank you to Waltip for the 5. Thank you to Waltip for the 5 gifted subs. Appreciate it. So right now, I mean, it's 3-2, but again, all I'm thinking about is tomorrow I'm playing good chess, nothing else really. And you don't play for a draw either, you guys. You got to keep your foot on the gas and keep trying to put pressure on your opponent. It's not over till the fat lady sings, as the saying goes.